Hi, I'm talking with narrative therapist today, Hannah Rachel Fruman. Hi, Hannah, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hannah, a question I'm sure a lot of people ask themselves is, what is OCD, depression, and anxiety? And how do I know if I fall into this category?
Okay, so they're very different. And what we in the Jerusalem Narrative Therapy Institute, we've created a workshop and a class called Working with OCD, Depression, and Anxiety Disorders. And what we found is that there's a presence that comes over the person's life, a little bit like being haunted by a ghost, except the ghost is very controlling and very demanding. So what happens is that the person feels the presence of something and actually feels that there's a directing voice or a directing idea that they have to struggle with all the time. So with OCD, this voice is going to be telling them what they have to do, what they forgot to do, what they have to not do all day long. And as you can imagine, that's very annoying and usually much worse. It's really terrifying. With depression, it's much more like somebody has come that is just a very negative, heavy force and is present all the time, and you can have a hard time getting out of bed, and you can have no motivation, and it just robs you of identity, which is what one client recently told me. This has just robbed me of my identity. And then in terms of panic and anxiety, sadly, what this does is it presents an influence that is terrifying, that questions the sanity of the person, that questions their ability to function, that tells them, that nobody likes them, and that kind of thing. So all of these presences fall into one category for us, just in the avenue of working with people to free them from the controlling nature of this presence.
And would you work with somebody one-on-one on their anxieties or fears, or could you do this as part of a group workshop?
Well, we've taught therapists how to do it as a group, but in terms of people themselves, usually we do this either in married couples or mother and child, or there's one of us with one person who's struggling with this, or we've also had a couple of us. We have a pair of therapists that work with this because it creates more of a sense of, attention. And what that helps do is woo the person away from the influences of this presence.
So if somebody like myself was battling with anxieties or fears, the fears could be, I'm fearful of flying in an airplane, and I'm fearful to drive places I don't know, that I haven't been before. Just not, somebody has these small anxieties and fears, always following them in life. Would I be able to come for narrative therapy and be able to deal with these issues?
Certainly. This is one of our main areas of inquiry. What it's all about is that we very supportively and with curiosity and no judgment, we look at what this presence is affecting their lives and how long and what its history's been, in their life before this happened. Like, have they ever seen it anywhere before? We create a story of what it's trying to pull off in this person's life, and if it was left alone, what would it end up with? And then we talk about what this person's dreams are, what their aspirations are, what they'd like to have happening, and how this voice is interfering with that. And then we create a process called repositioning, where they start to take a new position in relationship to what this problem is trying to cause.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Another thing that I also wanted to just ask you is, one of the many workshops that you offer is working with cruel and controlling voices, with clients struggling with OCD, depression, and anxiety. Can you tell us a little bit about this workshop, just briefly, and what one could expect, in this workshop?
Okay, so the workshop involves externalization of this presence. It's the idea that these presences are culturally created and they live external to people. And by looking at them that way, it allows someone to have a sense of identity, that I am not it. I am not anxious. I'm suffering with anxiety. I am not depressed. I'm not a depressed case. I've been overcome by depression. And so we talk about the tactics of these experiences, and we talk about the identity of the person that's separate from that, because everybody knows something about themselves separate from what these experiences cause. So one person is an artist or represents themselves as an artist, and another person feels like they're an incredible mother and their whole life has been filled with mothering. So we ask them for their identities and what's meaningful to them, and as that grows, then it kind of, how do you say, constricts the effects of the presence in their life, and slowly but surely they regain authority over it.
Do you think it's important to find out where the person's anxieties and fears stem from? Do they inevitably, stem from something? Was there a trigger or something that happened when they were younger that's causing them to be this way?
You know, what's unique about narrative is that we can spend time, if that's meaningful, on looking at causes and looking at roots and looking at patterns, but we don't have to, because we can work from today, because today is where the suffering is. So if this is based in old ideas and an old voice, like I can hear his voice in my head, that's fine, and we're very validating of that idea. But if it's just, this is since this happened, there was, God forbid, a car accident or a miscarriage, and ever since then, the depression has come, that's fine. So it can just be about today as well. So in either case, we are looking to help this person pull away from the amount of influence that this experience has, this cruel and controlling voice has, and then to find their own voice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Bye.